Hi there, and welcome to game number 8 of the World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Anand. After a 122 move monster yesterday in game 7, the players might have been just a tad tired, and I've got a feeling that it was the challenger that was more tired, more so than the champion who's effectively half his age. Be that as it may, it must have been immensely frustrating for Anand today that Magnus managed to doze off a couple of times in the middle of the game while still maintaining a huge margin of lead on his clock. But be that as it may, let's head on to the opening moves of the game and see how things develop. Anand sticks to what has worked for him well so far in this match, bearing in mind that in the previous match he lost those games playing with the white pieces when he opened e4, and he only managed to stabilize things once he switched to d4. So once again here in this match he opens with d4, and the game continued with knight f6, c4 and e6, which is the third time that Magnus has played exactly the same opening two moves. Now it must be said that after these opening two moves, Anand has still got absolutely no idea what opening Magnus intends to play, because he could be looking at a Queens Gambit Declined, it could be a Boga Indian, it could be a Queens Indian, it could be a Benoni, it could be a Bloomfeld. So the way things are looking at the moment is it could literally go in just about any direction. And after knight f3 and d5, we now know that Magnus is steering the game into the Queen's Gambit Declined. And continuing with knight c3, bishop e7, bishop f4, castling short, and e3. So far, all of this has been played effectively for the third game in a row, or for the third game now. But also, correction. So far, all of this has been played in the third game of this match. My humble apologies. But now, Magnus goes for the old classical line of the Queen's Gambit Declined by playing c5. Now, you definitely can't say that the move c5 in this type of position is anything even vaguely resembling a novelty. After all, if you just look at the chess-based database, you'll see that more than 3,000 games have reached this very position, and all of the big guys in chess have played it as well. For example, Kasparov has played it on 6 occasions with the white pieces and 5 occasions with the black pieces, this very position. Karpov has reached this position 7 times with white and a staggering 17 times with black. Kramnik has played this exact same position 11 times each with the black and the white pieces. So you can say that this position is almost a staple fodder of world champions, past and present. The game continued with d takes c5, bishop takes c5, still all perfectly normal, a3, knight c6, queen c2, and now the main move in this position is normally to play, for black to play the queen out to a5. But with Magnus, you can always expect him to play some rare sideline in a known variation, and once again he doesn't disappoint in this game. and he plays rook e8. Although this position has been reached in nearly 1,000 games, Magnus uncorks a move that has only been tried 32 times before in the game databases. And what's more, in all of those 32 games, it has never been played by a player with a rating higher than 2,700. So, from that point of view, you can say that at this type of level, it's you could almost call it a semi-novelty. And Anand replies with bishop g5, and it's very difficult to see in this situation whether or not the move bishop g5 was part of Anand's home preparation or not, but it was clearly part of Carlsen's variation, because in response to this, to bishop g5, he comes back immediately with bishop e7, and this is effectively, from a opening theory point of view, the novelty. And it's from the Magnus's point of view, he's looking at this position and saying, well, what's wrong with bishop e7? And his study and analysis hasn't really shown that there's anything inherently wrong with bishop e7, so he uncorks it as a novelty on move 10 of the game, which from a psychological point of view immediately puts Anand onto the back foot, even though he's playing with the white pieces, and for that matter makes Anand start gobbling up huge swaths of time on his clock once again. And so, and after a good long think, Anand comes back with rook d1 to be able to increase his pressure on that d5 pawn. One suggestion that came out of the Twitter sphere came from Caruana, where Caruana suggested the possibility of castling long in this position, which not only puts the rook onto d1 to be able to apply the d5 pressure, but at the same time it deals with the white king into at least some sort of degree of safety. But rook d1 was the move played, and Carlsen plays the naturally developing move of queen to a5 that effectively pins that c3 knight back against the king, and the king won't be able to castle very quickly, because before the king can do anything about castling, the f1 knight obviously needs to be dealt with, and only once the king is castled will he be then truly free of that pin and be able to start looking at developing his queen, and for that matter his queenside pawns, in a more attacking type of formation. Bishop d3 was the move played by Anand, opening the way for castling short. h6 came back from Carlsen, and in this position Carlsen was still playing his moves, showing us clearly that he's still well within home preparation by zapping off the moves with about a minute to 2 minutes worth of thinking between each, whereas Anand was more in the region of 5 to 8 minutes worth of thinking between moves, getting progressively further and further behind on the clock. bishop h4 from Anand. Because obviously bishop f4 would be absolutely impossible for Anand to play, simply because Carlsen would have been able to come back with e5, knight e5, knight e5, bishop e5, d takes c4, and that leaves Carlsen with effectively a winning game. Or for that matter, if after e5 Anand had to play bishop g3 for instance, then the pawn just comes forward to d4, and again that leaves Carlsen with a very handsome winning position, because for instance after bishop takes, knight takes, knight takes d4, knight takes d3 check, rook takes d3, and queen c5. Once again, this is a position that Magnus should be able to convert quite handsomely into the win. So from that perspective, Anand played his bishop back to h4, Carlsen came back with d takes c4, bishop takes c4, a6. Now we've got a position where we've got a really symmetrical pawn structure, whereby if you look, you've got 4 versus 4 on the king side, and you have a nicely symmetrical 2 versus 2 on the king side, on the queen side. So it's all looking fairly drawish at the moment, although both players have got the twin bishops, but if it can be exchanged down into opposite colored bishops, it should be really easy to hold as a draw for Magnus. Here at long last, Anand castles short, because if he doesn't do something about getting his king into safety soon, then Magnus will be able to uncork something to keep that king trapped in the center and give him a clear line of attack. b5 from Magnus, bishop a2 from Anand, and obviously by playing the bishop back to a2, there's still a degree of control over that long diagonal all the way across to where the black king is sitting. Bishop b7 for Magnus, bishop b1 for Anand, and black comes back with rook on a across to d8. Now looking at the situation as we have it here, is black has got his positions now fully developed, and positionally there seems to be absolutely zero advantage on the board for white. The only way he can hope to get some sort of an edge is by means of creating concrete threats, and that's exactly what Anand attempts to do by means of his next couple of moves, by playing bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6. So by switching the bishops there, by making the exchange there on f6, it gives the combination of queen bishop a clear view across to that h7 square, and it's clear that right now Carlsen was very much still all completely within his home preparation, because at this stage, Anand was down to only 50 minutes remaining on his clock, and Carlsen still had an hour and 44 minutes left. That's just 6 minutes shy of a full hour advantage on the clock in the section of the time control that gives you 2 hours to make your first 40 moves. And after 18 moves, Carlsen has used 16 minutes of his 2 hours, and Anand has already used up an hour and 10 minutes. This just goes to show you how deep Carlsen's home preparation went. Here white played knight e4. For instance, queen h7 might have been a possibility with king f8, knight e4, rook takes d1, rook takes d1, rook d8 as a possibility, but that still leaves everything really equal. So Anand played knight e4, Magnus played bishop e7, and it just keeps really tight control over everything. There's nothing really within black's position that gives white any sort of target to be able to really go after. And after knight c5, once again opening up that correction, the diagonal to h7, there's nothing really much more in the position. I mean, there's, for instance, here Carlsen played bishop takes c5, and we play queen takes c5, and it takes us across into a positional structure that's similar to something that might come out of a Catalan. And the only difference is here that if this were a Catalan, the white square bishop would now be sitting on g2, but effectively, aside from that, everything is really similar to a Catalan, and black has nothing to worry about whatsoever. In this position, it could have been exchanged down towards an endgame by playing rook takes d1, rook takes d1, rook d8, rook d8 check, queen takes d8, bishop c2, and knight e7, for instance. But all that would have happened there is that it would be once again a traded down equalized position and effectively heading towards a draw. So instead of that, Magnus comes back with b4. Again, typical Magnus type of slow pushing type of move, but again, nothing to worry about. For instance, against b4, white could have come back with something like queen takes a5, knight a5, a b4, knight c4, bishop b3, bishop takes f3, rook d8, should I say rook taking on d8, black rook takes on d8, b takes c4, bishop e2, rook c1, and bishop c4, which is again equalized very nicely, and I'm very sure that this must have been part and parcel of Carlsen's home preparation. But instead of having to face that line, Anand played rook to c1, to which Carlsen then started trading things down by playing bishop takes b takes a3, b takes a3, exchange the queens, which Carlsen always likes to do because with Anand being the sharp tactician, by trading off the queens, it takes the tactical dynamic sting out of Anand's game. Knight to e7. Here, for instance, another piece that must have been analysed by Carlsen in his home preparation would have been what to do if Anand had played rook c7, and the answer to that is you play b6 to allow knight e5, rook c8, rook takes c8, rook takes, knight takes on c6, and rook takes on c6, and once again a really nice equalized position. But instead of needing to face that, Anand plays rook on f to c1, and we've got the rook goes back out to c8 again, bishop d3 for Anand. Now Carlsen exchanges off the rooks because Carlsen's position is really comfortable and he's got nothing to worry about whatsoever. So each new exchange that he makes now, just simply the rook goes out to c8, forcing the exchange of rooks. And right now I'm pretty sure that in this type of position both players had a clear idea that with the symmetrical pawns, knights and bishops, that the position would eventually land up being drawn, but they continued pushing the position slightly with Anand playing knight to d2, knight b6, knight b3, knight d7, because Carlsen playing knight d7 is obviously to prevent the white knight from getting to the important c5 square, which would then allow for a knight fork across the bishop and pawn, which would have been a really uncomfortable situation to deal with. So the game continues with bishop c8, king f1, king f8, king e1, king e7 for black, king d2, king d6, king c3, knight to e5, bishop to e2, king to c5, f4, knight c6, knight takes on c6, king takes on c6, the king goes to d4, and Magnus plays f6. And as you can see, once again, as I mentioned earlier with the symmetrical pawn positions, here once again we've got a really symmetrical 4 versus 4, with the rook pawns remaining on the queen side of the board, but it is all completely symmetrical and completely dead drawn. There isn't any way that the white king will be able to get in behind the black pawns because of the positioning of the black king, and likewise there is no ways that the black king will be able to get in behind the white pawns to be able to create havoc there, because by way of king opposition, the white king would prevent the black king from making any progress as far as that's concerned. So symmetrical pawns, no threats as far as the bishops are concerned, and in the area of the board where either of the two kings might be able to make a breakthrough, the other king, by using king opposition, is completely blocking that off. So after a further e4, king d6, setting up the opposition, and e5 with check, this is where the two players agreed on a draw, a dead nothing in the position whatsoever, which to all intents and purposes, from the players that were expecting complete fireworks to be coming out from Anand in this game, bearing in mind that this is the fifth last game and the third last chance that Anand has the white pieces, that some of those players might be saying that this was a bit of a boring game. But what must be noted is that after games 7 and 8, it's clear here that now that we're moving into the second half of the match, that Carlsen's home preparation is really coming into its own. And this must be a big blow to Anand, because in the opening part of the match, it was he that seemed to be having the better home preparation going into the games. And with only 2 games remaining with the white pieces, and Anand needing to win 2 more games to be able to take the